In here,
Hi, how are you?
managing, I suppose.
Um, yeah, happy Tuesday. Um, mm-mm. Okay, today's topic. Well, first of all, before we start, we do the Twitter space every Tuesday, mainly because you're running for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, and I would like for people to support and donate. Your cash app is $ Judge Joe Brown 2023, $ Judge Joe Brown 2023, cash app $ Judge Joe Brown 2023, and you also have your website. That's jjb2023.com. People go to the website, sign up, jjb2023.com. You can also donate at the website on the website as well. So that's jjb2023.com. So we do this every Tuesday, and I think I have the time. Going forward, I want us to start at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we started at 4, but 5 is more of a better cushion for me, you, and the people that's coming into the space. So yeah, what do you think? Tuesday's 5?
I always am crowded, so one day is no better than the other. Go ahead.
Okay. So also, guys, the ones that's in the space, can you please share this Twitter space? Um, Tweet it, drop it in other people's DMs. Please share the space so other people could come on as well. So let's start with hashtag Durham. The Durham report exposes Russia hoax against Trump. That's been trending since yesterday. Basically, an investigation into the origins of the FBI's probe into ties between Russia and Donald Trump 2016 presidential campaign has finally been concluded, with prosecutor John Durham submitting a much awaited report that found major flaws. The report, the culmination of 4-year investigation to a possible misconduct by the U.S. government officials, contained weathering criticism of the FBI, but few significant revelations. Nevertheless, it would give fodder to Trump supporters who have long denounced the Russia investigation. Meanwhile, Trump opponents will likely point to the Durham team's meager court record, one guilty plea, two acquittals at trial, as proof that the probe was politically motivated force. Who is John Durham? He is a Justice Department prosecutor with past assignments, including investigations into the FBI cozy relationship with mobsters in Boston and the CIA's destruction of videotapes of its harsh interrogations of terrorism subjects. And he spent decades doing this, right? And he was appointed in 2019 to investigate potential misconduct by the US government officials as they examined Russian election interference in 2016, whether there were illegal coordinations between the Kremlin and Trump's presidential campaign. So basically, they came up with nothing.
It's not surprising. I said that all along. It's just so much mess that the current press has been banding about carelessly and recklessly, and it's nothing but propaganda because they have an agenda they're trying to foster on the public. We have to be
Mm-hmm.
cautious of it.
And how much of the taxpayers' dollars was spent into this investigation?
A lot.
So it was basically, what do you call, smoke and mirrors or something? Was it a
That's
forest?
a
What?
good word for it.
So is this a plus, a win for Trump?
No, it's a
Who
plus and a
benefits the
win for
most?
the American public who ought to take this to heart and start putting their foot down.
Mm-hmm.
Too much of this has gone on. It's gotten crazy. It's not communist, it's fascism. It's the same kind of thing that was so long characteristic of the National Socialist Workers' Party. We know it in history as the Nazi Party.
Okay.
It's
And
deplorable,
that's
and it's a type of approach to thing that is centered around propaganda being cognizant of a reality. Tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and you can get anyone, including the liar, to believe it.
right. And do you think this administration or this American society is they're trying to head it towards a Nazi regime
It's
like
fascist.
society? Fascist.
It's his methodology since he's been active politically, which goes back 50 years, has been quite much into that. I think of a Russian professor I had who was a visiting professor emeritus from the University of Moscow back in 1967 and 68. I was a teaching assistant for her. And she said America is in grave danger of becoming a fascist country, not from jackboot wearing, goose stepping, uniformed thugs, but from, as she put it, pink panty wearing, long haired beatniks who would impose the methods of fascism with no hesitation and in good conscience, trying to save you from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're
So,
looking at. It's come to pass. I think they may wear pink panties or thongs or something like that. And you can look at the recent flush of things coming out of Sports Illustrated, Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, which turns out to be a foreign country now. They bought up the American concerns. And even though it is obvious that if you apply marketing standards to what they do, it is absolutely ridiculous, but you have to say these corporate entities are in league with others with the same agenda, and they think they have enough money in pocket to be able to afford the losses that come from straight propaganda, because they certainly have no justification market wise, because all that happens is they lose money and lose market.
mm-hmm.
But that's the way of
um,
it.
right. I've with this Biden administration, he is in the title here. I did put hashtag Durham. I wanted to just touch on that, and I also put hashtag FJ Biden. That's a hashtag going around on Twitter. I guess that means F Joe Biden. What also is going around on Twitter? It was a hashtag impeachment processing or something with impeachment, administration, something. So do you think before his term is up that they're going to try and start the impeachment process?
They could.
Should they?
Well, the problem is there's going to be an exercise in futility because the U.S. Senate is still 50-50. And with Kamala Imhoff being president pro tem with the deciding vote, that won't go anywhere, but it might not hurt to bring the matter to the fore so it starts getting PR before the
Mm-hmm.
election. Choose it so it's strategically matched to the critical portion of the election process, and they might be able to get some benefit from it. I don't like that kind of thing, but turnaround is always fair play. And the
Mm-hmm.
Democratic Party has been absolutely obnoxious about it. They act like a bunch of whining little sissies, which is not an inapt description of them anyway. But they act like these whining sissies that are so prevalent on the playgrounds where they want to go create all kinds of hell, and then when it gets turned around, they want to take their ball and run home or run to the ball box. Oh, I forgot they don't have athletics anymore in school, so they want to go run tell the teacher.
Mm-hmm. Um, it says Marjorie Taylor Greene introduces articles of impeachment against FBI Director Christopher Wray. So that's probably why impeachment was trending. Um, Under Wray's watch, the FBI has intimidated, harassed, and entrapped American citizens that have been deemed enemies of the Biden regime. As such, Director Wray has turned the FBI into Joe Biden and Merrick Garland's personal police force. The Soviet-style tactics used by the FBI against normal Americans are unprecedented in this country. FBI whistleblower Garrett O'Boyle told congressional investigators that the FBI created a terrorist threat tag following the Dobbs Supreme Court decision in 2022. O'Boyle confirmed that the purpose of the tag was to target pro-life individuals. On September 23rd, 2022, armed FBI agents in tactical gear raided the family home of Mark Houck, Houck, a pro-life Catholic and father of 7 young children, because he obstructed access to an abortion clinic. This is a quote by Greene's office. So she wants to impeach the FBI director.
Well, look, the FBI has always been a snitch organization. It has always been a threat to the rights that Americans possess. There have been limited instances where they had utility, such as in the 60s and 50s in suppression of the Klan when it came to their illegal activities. And that principally was because J. Edgar Hoover, it turns out, was a black man passing for white. And his parents got run out of Louisiana by the Klan way back when, and he always had a vehement hatred of the KKK. So that had some utility. But other than that, the FBI was created to find out some way to prosecute or get evidence to prosecute the first black world heavyweight champion, Jack Johnson, who had a white wife, and they finally succeeded and set up the basis for what is now known as the Mann Act. And you saw that most recently applied to R. Kelly's situation. So they constantly infiltrated most of the civil rights entities, the black churches in the South, and Hoover was of the impression that black churches were communist-sponsored organizations, uh, which were inherently set up not to pacify black folks so they could endure one more week, which was the reality, but actually to agitate black people to get unruly so that they would no longer be peaceful. And that's part of that process of somebody who is part of a group hating the group because of that individual's perceived negatives concerning the group. So it is what it is. And we need to find some way of getting replacements for the Black Caucus, who seems to think that this agency that was set up to spy on and suppress them has now become somehow or another their friend. It's not. It is designed to appeal to certain types who, well, let's look at this. Nerds who want power and revenge. When the FBI needed some badasses, they got special field agents like Elliot Ness and this kind, and they wound up trying to kill them off because they were embarrassment, whereas your typical agent was supposed to be a lawyer specializing in taxation or CPA. Those aren't the categories that you would expect to find badasses from. So it is what it is. No. People may not like
Okay.
that, but that's the reality. The FBI is interesting. I remember reading somebody that I had met was a graduate from UCLA Law School the year before I enrolled, and he indicated that when he had his final interview with J. Edgar Hoover before becoming a member of the FBI after going through training, Hoover was standing on milk crates in the middle of his office, and the task was to avoid at all cost any glimpse, however, or glance, however slight, at the milk crate upon which Hoover was standing. That was a test, and it pretty much sums up what the FBI has been about. There are
Mm-hmm.
agents that are nobly dedicated to the cause that they think the FBI is supposed to have, but too often they have, well, here's this word again, a fascist mindset.
Mm-hmm. Adam, you requested to speak. Did you want to comment on anything before I move on to Title 42?
Hey, good afternoon, Dana and Judge
Hi.
Joe Brown. You guys are awesome. Glad to see you today. God bless you both and everybody in this room. Yeah, I definitely, it's things that we've already known. We've already known, and it's just good to see it confirmed. People have been dealing with this sort of divisive harassment for 7 years. They've been thinking they have a Russian agent as a president. That has got to be the most divisive thing possible. Everybody, in America, like my family voted, was registered Democrat at the time when they voted for Obama. Second term, switched to libertarian, voted against him, but we accepted him as president. And then Hillary lost, and she started all this ruckus up, and along with Obama and along with Biden, and they're all, you know, culprits in this action against, the natural way our country works. And we accept it. We've always accepted our president, as a president, and they changed it around and they denied it for 4 years. Russia, 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 Russia. And you saw division amongst friends and family. Oh, you're a Russian agent, this and that, all this stuff. Like, it was just ridiculous. It was very divisive. And I think that's where the division in the country started, really going awry, just overall. And one thing I always try to tell, and like, every room I go to, is when you speak to relatives that are Democrat voters, do not refer to, when you're talking about the DNC, say the DNC. Do not say Democrats, because it's alienates them. It includes them like they were complicit. You know, it's better to get them to wake up to things that are actually been happening by referring to the culprits as the DNC, not Democrats, because it's just so like all encompassing and for their party. And it's like, you're taking shots at them. You're not going to get them to come over to reality and reason, and just use that term DNC. That's what I'll always say, is blame the DNC, don't blame Democrats, like in general. Yeah, they voted for them. But yeah, that's I'll land my plane there. It's a pleasure talking to you guys always.
Yeah, stay up. You may want to comment on some other topics, but
Might I
that is a
might
good
I
tip.
might I offer something? You're probably correct on that. I have no dispute. However, every now and then people should be punished for their transgressions, and fair turnarounds, fair play. If the party they support give their votes to and are either directly or indirectly the cause of a lot of people having their lives ruined, people dying because of the poison that's out there in the streets and the lack of character that comes from what the Democratic Party has done, then perhaps they need to take a little bit of the heat. That's like the American and British air campaigns in World War II against Germany were designed to make the German people feel responsible and to suffer for what their leadership had done in the name of fascism. So, yeah, I get it. You are quite correct on what you say, but
Yeah, I agree too.
it is what it is.
All right, so
Could I add one more thing, Dana?
yeah.
Yeah, I think as far as the impeachment goes of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris has to face impeachment as well. I think Mayorkas is facing impeachment, and the judge of D.C. That's been trying the January 6th trials is facing impeachment. I posted on the bubble, but regardless, I think that the DNC is ready to throw Biden under the bus. So who knows what will happen in the Senate? They don't want him running in 2024. They know he's not capable. He's a mess, and this is possibly their way of getting rid of him as well. Don't doubt that they don't want that they want him to run in 2024. You know, they don't.
One thing let me just give a compliment to the Republicans. At least they try to do things by the book when it comes to trying to prevent someone from running for re-election or harming somebody's election. They do, to a certain degree, do it by the book more so than the Democrats. Both of them are dirty. Both of them cheat. But I just think Republicans try to do things by the book, where the Democrats, they don't care how it's done as long as they're winning. It's a big difference. Let me bring up Title 42, because the reason why I have Title 42 in the title, I came across the article that I put in the Jumbotron. Homeless veterans have been booted from hotels to make room for illegal aliens. I got a problem with that. And that's where the hashtag FJ Biden comes from. And this was by way of the New York Post. Let me see if I can pull up that article. Why? And so this is the problem that I have with Title 42, keeping the border open, sanctuary cities, because you're not putting American citizens first. You're not even putting people who are actually have a green card, who came here the legal way, and they're still waiting to be a citizen after a decade. These people are jumping them ahead of the line, and these people that do have a green card or a residency, they're actually paying taxes, to where these illegals are not. So why are you pushing out? And our vets, they already get treated like shit. I'm sorry. But why are you pushing them out for illegals? Stop having them come in your city. So I have a problem with that. Judge, I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that.
Well, that you put it well when you say jumping the line. And the other point is you can't even get it together for full-fledged citizens or legal residents or people in line for immigration. So what is the point? What are you trying to do with this bum rush? I mean, it's like you have a very popular movie and the tickets have had the price ramped way up, or you're going to a Beyonce concert where the tickets have a ridiculous price anyway. So you're the promoter and you have one, so you invite all the thugs in the town to come in free. What
Right.
is that?
It says the 20 homeless veterans who were evicted from Orange County hotels this week to make way for a group of migrants are shaken, but soldiering on. We are trying to regain their trust, Sharon Tony Finch, CEO of the Uric Israel Tony Foundation, and herself a disabled veteran. They are very upset because of how they have been replaced, and we are too. Local leaders were quick to condemn the eviction from several hotels in Newburgh and Middletown, which was first revealed by the Post this past Saturday. Leaders in the veteran community were quick to denounce the evictions of the former soldiers, many of them struggling with PTSD. Quote, these veterans served their country, taking an oath to put themselves in harm's way if need be, end quote, by David R. Rowley, Senior American Legion Department of New York commander. Quote, they deserve better. We owe them. Our country, our state, our citizens owe them, end quote. Absolutely.
Well, you know what? See, one of the things is that the Constitution requires that the chief executive officer follow the laws of the United States and, in fact, enforce the laws of the United States. The Justice Department, the FBI, the Treasury Department, the Secret Service, which was charged with enforcing rules to protect our currencies from counterfeiting. These are all law enforcement agencies that come under the executive to maintain public peace, dignity, and order. Also, the Department of Defense comes under the chief executive, who is the commander in chief. There are laws that must be followed, and it's an impeachable offense for somebody to decline to follow those laws because that breaks them. The president is not immune from compliance with the law. And that includes misdemeanors and felonies in our office under Article 2, Section 4, which are grounds, if upon conviction for the articles of impeachment specifying such things, for removal, and under Amendment 12 for a prohibition from being able to hold another office. So, yes, they can go after him.
Right. And then, too, I want to add, the hotels that evicted these veterans, who's paying for the illegals, right? They're definitely getting money from the state and the federal government, because they were probably getting it for the veterans from the state and federal government, unless some of that money were being paid out of their disability check. So these hotels are probably saying, well, we're going to give the rooms to the highest bidder. And that's still wrong. You see what I'm saying? So it's also a moral obligation here when we're talking about American citizens.
Well, let's face it. One of the big problems that we have right here is that, however you want to look at it, the taxpayers are footing the bill.
Right.
Like,
Adam,
excuse me, but where did we get stuck with this? You've got people breaking the law and we have to pay for it. And again, there is nothing that gives the president the authority to countermand the laws that have been passed by Congress. That was that big thing when Ollie North went to jail, got let out because of violation of his Fifth Amendment rights by Congress when they interrogated him. But that was the whole thing, to protect Ronald Reagan, because it turned out later that Ronald Reagan, in spite of the assertions of plausible deniability, had signed executive orders directing that the Justice Department and other people under him disregard the laws passed by Congress forbidding the exchange of arms for money, which wound up going to the Contras. That's how we got 911, because bin Laden was the intermediary at the time with the CIA, and they're exchanging the Stinger missiles for cash with the rebels in Afghanistan, the so-called freedom fighters, who were supposed to be fighting the Soviet Union and giving them their Vietnam. Well, the money went to the Contras, the opposition to in Central America, and that was against American law. So we went through a lot of changes, and Ollie North got scapegoated, and I imagine bin Laden got subject to one of our routine assassination attempts, got pissed off, and decided to retaliate. And that led to 9/11, the Gulf Wars, and a whole lot of other nasty things that we had to deal with or have had to deal with. So there are consequences.
Adam, and anybody else want to request to come up, please do so.
Yeah, and definitely retweet the space, guys. Get it out there. Definitely, there's a bunch of people in here. We could definitely retweet and get some more people in here. Bin Laden. Yeah, he was definitely an CIA asset. He even had a little pet nickname. Tim Osman was his nickname. If you Google Tim Osman, you'll see all the connections there. But as far as Constitution and people not upholding their duty of office or oath of office, under Article 4, Section 4 says the United States shall guarantee to every state in this republic form of government and in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. So that's right there. That's a violation of the Constitution. Article 3, Section 3, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless the testimony of two witnesses of the same overt act or confession in open court. Now, if the federal government's not holding these things to, Teal, let's say there's, a further option and there's another check, which is outside of these branches of government and alphabet agencies, and that's the military. And in addition to trying members of the military courts can also try civilians who are accused of serious offenses, such as terrorism or espionage. These civilians are tried in military courts because their crimes are a threat to national security. So, hopefully we don't go down that road, and hopefully our federal government, does what it's supposed to do and works the way it should work. That's just one thing there I'd like to lay out. What do you think, Judge?
Well, you read it. It hasn't evaporated.
All right, and moving on, HBCUs, and again, go support Judge Joe Brown, 4 May, Memphis, Tennessee. His Cash App is $ Judge Joe Brown 2023, $ Judge Joe Brown 2023 on Cash App. Go to his website, jjb2023.com, jjb2023.com, and sign up, and you can donate via the website as well. And please share this space. If you want to request to come up, do so. HBCU. So Biden this past Saturday gave a commencement speech at Howard University. I'm not surprised. Part of this speech, he says, President Joe Biden on Saturday told graduates of the leading historical Black university that American history has not always been a fairy tale and that racism has long torn us apart. But on the nation's best days, he said, enough of us have the guts and the heart to stand up for the best in us. What the hell is that? He says, hate never goes away and silence is complicity.
Well, I'm not being silent. He's an asshole.
Exactly.
And by the way, I claim status. My dad got degrees at Howard, undergrad and law school. And I was born there in their Freedmen's Hospital. So screw the son of a bitch. That's the worst person it should be speaking at Howard now, uh, just on GPs. But, maybe they want to broaden their horizons. They've been going through a thing where they want to restrict the people that might say something that makes them think. I want to commend the young man who stood up and in his cap for the cap and gown presentations, he held it up, stood up while that idiot was blathering at the microphone, and he let everybody see it. It was a written opposition to the fool.
Right. Didn't you tweet that? I'm trying to see if I could find that tweet.
I didn't tweet it. I don't think I tweeted. I commented on
Or
it.
did
I
you retweet it?
something.
Oh, you commented. Yeah. That's what I meant. Retweet. Did you retweet it? Yeah. I caught that message too. I don't remember it offhand, but he spoke the truth. And more people, especially young people, need to have an independent way of thinking. A lot of those graduates at Howard and other, I would say there's HBCUs, they're so brainwashed and they use racism and white supremacy as a damn crutch. I'm sorry. And it's going to get worse. You cannot go through life. Life is going to be harder for you if you lead with how racist society is because you're Black. I'm sorry. And a lot of HBCUs now, that's what they're drilling in their heads.
And a lot of these HBCUs have another problem too. They've been stealing money. The administrations, that's becoming a widespread thing. The word is getting out there. And that's the kind of problem we've had. You let Negroes get in charge of Black institutions and they start behaving like low Negroes instead of Black folk, and they steal when they get the chance. The money that goes into these institutions is has supposed to, and has been used to advance the race of which they are still part. But they use the opportunity and the access to commit acts of embezzlement. It's getting to be a problem. And some of the things that are going on in some of these HBCUs are absolutely ridiculous. I'm privy to something that happened several decades ago at Howard when the dean of the law school was attempting to flunk a certain law student, and the dean of the medical school was attempting to flunk a certain medical student because the medical student was married to the dean of the law school and the law student was married to the dean of the medical school, and they were competing to see who first got a joint degree in law and medicine from Howard University. Most ridiculous and embarrassing garbage I've seen it's been a long time, about 40 some years ago. But it is still the travesty that occurs at these institutions. That's not what they were created for, not what they ought to be doing now.
As far as the college's enrollment, it says this article, I put it in the Jumbotron as well. Black college and university enrollment has been dropping steadily, around down 20%, 22% between 2010 and 2020, or by more than 650,000 students, according to the National Center for Education Statistics. It has fallen by another 7% since then. More recent figures from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center show. So that's almost close to 1 million students not enrolling in Black universities between 2010 and 2020. Now, I don't know if those students are just going to trade school and bypassing college or going straight into the work field or prison. Where are those 650,000 students? What is happening in them? Like, that's the conversation that I want to start having, because everybody doesn't want to go to college. And this is specifically for HBCUs. Maybe they're opting to go to other universities and colleges, particularly community, because it's cheaper. So, now, of course, I think it was last week, we talked about the affirmative action that's at the Supreme Court. And I think a judgment for that should be coming up in June. But, what are your thoughts on the drop in 22% of HBCUs enrollment?
Well, let me put it this way. I know what people are saying about you don't need to go to college, but this is the 21st century, and they have people right now that are very useful when it comes to servicing all of the high tech stuff that we have, to doing the stuff that needs to be done. But as what we press buttons to have happen gets more advanced and AI gets into the picture, these positions of servicing these devices are going to be more turned over to AI. And if you want to be relevant for your children who will be along at the end of this century going into the next, you good and goddamn well better start figuring out how to make these things, because it's science, technology, engineering, and math that will be at the forefront of making the devices that make the devices. It won't be a matter of pounding it out, sawing it out, carving it out, because things will be done along those lines by devices. So learn how to make them. Now, you can get into the service industry, it'll be temporarily viable, but not for long, because there is a geometric progression in technology in certain fields, and this is one of them, meaning it is exponential, not 1, 2, 3, 4 or 2, 4, 6, 8. It goes 2, 4, uh, well, yeah, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 5, 56, 1024.
Mm-hmm.
1,000, well, 1,000, well, 500, 512, 1024. It goes like that. It's exponential. So
Mm-hmm.
it increases, the rate of increase in the need for these things is getting way, way up there. And remember, the Chinese, they send people free of charge as far into the educational clouds as they can get them. Same with Russia. So
Right.
take advantage of any opportunity. Don't just say it's hard work and you don't want to do it. Do it. If you can't, you can't. Do what you can do. And we
Well,
have to understand too, some of us just can't do it. So don't sit there and try to crab in a barrel, pull down the ones who can. It's a reality.
I think also there's a couple other variables that go into this, right? I would say specifically for HBCUs in college period, because I'm seeing less and less doctors. I think we need more Black doctors. I'm starting to see less and less of that. Um, I think that education is not being pushed in the households hard like it used to. We're not putting our children in extracurricular activities outside of school to expose them to different industries, helping them in certain areas, whether it's SAT testing, reading, and stuff like that. We're not pushing academia outside of the traditional school. Parents are reliant on a traditional school, and that's it. And that really has to change. Also, it's a money factor. A lot of people are like, well, I'm poor, I can't afford it. Which is why some people may go to a community. It says here 34% of Black adults have associate's degrees or higher, compared to 50% of white adults. Well, when you look at the wealth gap, generational wealth or overall wealth gap, white people always surpass Black people, even though we're a lesser population. But just on the metrics of income, they always surpass us when it comes to generational wealth. So let me just throw this
Well,
extra.
that's our fault. Look, you were talking about a certain evangelist Black preacher and all of the huge amounts that people were putting into the collection plate when his daughter was giving the
Oh no,
Mother's Day
let me lay that
service.
story. Let me lay that
No,
description.
but I'm
This
just
was
saying, when you
YouTube.
get
Yeah.
back to it, just think about all that money that was put in where you say what there were 50-some thousand
No,
people
this was
attended.
YouTube, right? So TD Jakes have, of course, a YouTube channel, and every Sunday you could watch his live sermon at his church in Dallas. 50,000
Yeah, but
people in
my
his
point
live
is
with
just
hundreds of
think about that.
dollars.
Just think about that. What you saw right then could have capitalized a lot of potentially lucrative black businesses and other things. That's why we don't have it. See, nobody else does this stupid crap. If you go to a Catholic church and you've got Hispanics, they might put a penny in there. If you've got your typical white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, he's putting in there what he can afford and reserving for the Lord, what is necessary to deliver the prosperity he's been praying for as a bargain. Lord, I have done your work, spread your word, and tried to advance your charities. Deliver unto me what I am asking for. We sit there, oh Lord, please, Lord, you know I've been wanting, and try to bribe our way out of hell.
Right. It's the well, let me just say this, even if they're Hispanic or white in a Catholic church, they don't just put a penny, but the fact is that what they match
do
in the
just
church,
put a penny in there.
well, what they
I
match
used
with
to
the
run a
church,
Boy Scout troop
what they
and a
match with
Cub.
the
Wait a
church,
minute.
they
I used
match
to
in
run a
real
Boy
life.
Scout troop. Excuse me. I used to run a Boy Scout and a Cub Scout troop at a Catholic church because one of my law partners asked me to do it. Those fathers were complaining all the time about how when they were at some other church visiting, unlike the black folk who put a lot of money in there, the parishioners that they dealt with were putting pennies in.
Well, they were consistent with the pennies, but the point I'm making is, no matter how much they put in, other than black, they matched, if not more, when it comes to their household education and investments. We do it in reverse. You put all your money in the church and that's it. Well, what about your investments? What about your children's education? What about your community with businesses? So just using TD Jakes, YouTube, 50,000 people, and then every minute you see donations, 100, 50, 50, 300, 500, 20, 20. No one was donating nothing less than $20. It was 20, 50, 100, 200, 500. Constant for 3 hours straight. So you're right. Where is that dedication to your community, to your children's education? So, I mean, this is a great point. And what I wanted to throw in there, reparation. People who are saying that I don't have money to go to college, and definitely you want to be a doctor, that's $300,000. Should Black people receive free education for higher education to go to college, to go to med school under the umbrella of reparations?
Well, okay. If they have certain financial or economic backgrounds, yes, anybody should. But there would be no reason for you to give it free of charge, say, to my kids, which I had to pay. I paid out a lot of money because I could afford it. See, again, you have to make things race neutral these days. Now, if it's race neutral, it may have the effect because of economic circumstances of impacting somebody. But you see, I dealt with that 50 some years ago when I was on these admissions committees at UCLA, run by black folk. And we weren't having this just because you were black, but you decided to spend all your time partying and you didn't have any privation because your mama and dad were like the Cosby Show stuff. One was a doctor and one was a lawyer, or one was a school teacher and one was a doctor, or one was a school teacher and one was a lawyer, and you took trips to Paris and Brazil. You didn't need any damn assistance. You needed to do what everybody else in your situation did. Buckle down and do what you were supposed to do. But you see, no, I don't buy that. You got to show something else because there are a lot of knuckleheads and shysters and charlatans and posers running around. They don't do a damn thing for black folk until it comes time to take some advantage of the situation. And there are a lot of pimps. Look at Barack Obama's ass. Bathhouse Berry didn't do a damn thing, hasn't done a damn thing for black folk, but he sure as hell exploited it. He didn't grow up in the continental United States. He grew up under rich circumstances in a compound or 2 or 3 owned and possessed by one of the wealthiest men on the planet Earth. And he went to a high school that when he went there had a tuition of $45,000 a year, not including room and board. And I know what that cost, because when my ex-wife wanted to send her stepson, my oldest son, there 20 some years ago, the tuition was $96,000, $95,000 a year, not including room and board. Hell no. He's not one of us. He doesn't have any circumstances. He's like trying to say a Cadillac and a Chevrolet, other than being made by General Motors, is the same as a BMW or a Ferrari, because they're all painted black. They're not.
Strapped daddy. Okay. You have your hand up, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you guys. Well, just call me Ezekiel. My Twitter handle
okay.
hasn't changed, but yeah, I change my name every so often. And being that Title 42 is now expired, and I live in the great state of Texas, a PSA from Strap Daddy: carry everywhere you go.
Meaning you're strapped. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. And I'm a dad, so that makes sense. Well, at least I thought it did. I'm not too great at humor, but so what? I kind of came in this a little late. I just saw your invitation there, Dana. Judge Joe Brown, lovely to hear from you again. You were definitely a welcome addition in my household. My mom and me used to sit and watch you, as I said the last time, and now as a grown-ass man, I'm watching your reruns on YouTube when I drink my coffee. You do, sir, crack me the fuck up. So
well, we're talking about a collage of things, and I'll put the different things of articles in a jumbotron. So, you know, because when people come up, you could comment on whatever. So we just talked about hashtag Durham, the Durham Report, Title 42, specifically how vets were being evicted from hotels in Orange County, New York, for illegal aliens. And
they actually did that with the shelter down here on Cullen in the city of Houston. There were 47 veterans in that shelter. Now they are no longer in that shelter and are replaced by the migrants that have been bused to Houston since last weekend. I live on the East End. I live in Magnolia Park. What are fucking... Can I cuss on here? I have a Marine's mouth, so forgive me.
Yeah, I mean, you could curse. It's just that I am uploading this on YouTube, so you could curse, but not too many curses. If that
Gotcha.
makes sense.
All right, so our prick of a mayor, Sylvester Turner, calls Magnolia Park Little Mexico because it's like a 98% Hispanic population. That's where I live. So even the people in my community are upset about this. These are all hardworking immigrant families that came here the proper way. The place I live in is actually owned by a legal immigrant named Miguel, and he's best landlord I've ever had. But anyway, I'm getting lost in a tangent here. So with the whole Title 42 issue, I take a rather extreme stance on this. I, as somebody who has bled for my nation, will say that I take a very extreme stance on our border, as some would call it. I have a proposition to solve our border issue. I suggest we do what they do in Eastern Europe. Every 50 yards, throw up a guard tower, guard shack, 6-man station, rotating shift. You get within 100 yards of the border, rubber rounds, you cross that line, live fire. Plain and simple. I guarantee you stop crossings overnight. There's a reason why countries like Romania, Serbia, Belarus, all that don't have illegal immigration. Not because people don't want to go there, because they end up going there anyway. And same with Mexico's border with Guatemala. It's 200 yards of razor wire, and you will be shot if you get caught crossing that border without going through a port of entry. They don't play any games. We're the only country in the world outside of the European Union, which if you have an EU passport, you can freely travel, that does not just shoot people if they cross the border. I am 100% in favor of that. And that is me as a first generation American. My parents immigrated here. So I am the son of immigrants. And I have, me and my family and myself on a personal level, have given far too much to this nation and have worked too hard to earn our place here and become part of the American culture. For, I do believe on Saturday, they stopped counting at 80,000 that were just coming through the El Paso checkpoint alone. They stopped counting at 80K. In this last week, we've had more migrants, or let's just call it what it is, illegal immigrants crossing our border under the refuge of asylum than any point in U.S. history. In 1 week, we accounted for an entire year under the Obama administration in 2011. Lovely little Googleable facts. Last week, we topped an entire year of immigration in a week. That is not a crisis. That is an invasion. There's lovely reporters right now in the Darien Gap, several of which are estimating between 2 and 7 million people are moving through the Darien Gap currently heading towards the United States. If you're unaware what the Darien Gap is, that is the land bridge between South America and North America. It's preposterous, the amount of people heading towards our southern border. And when they say the asylum seekers, now I deem asylum as you're coming from a war-torn area. Asylum and refugee to me are interchangeable. If you are coming from a country currently in conflict where your life is immediately in danger by staying in your home nation, yes, claim asylum or refugee status. But the people coming across our border are economic migrants. This administration is giving them all. It's been shown by Owen Schroyer, along with many other outstanding independent journalists. Tim Pool with Timcast has reporters down there, Daily Wire, Dave Rubin, Rolling Stone, even Matt Taibbi has made a presence known at the border, where they're showing that the Biden administration is instructing the U.S. military to give these people a cell phone that will tell them when their court date is for their asylum. They're not going to show up. They've essentially handed them a free tracking device, which they'll more than likely sell or get rid of, and they're giving them a debit card with $1,300 on it. Now, I did 3 combat tours. I've bled for my nation. And I don't get those benefits from my own government. So why is somebody who has never contributed to this society in any way, shape, or form granted those benefits when people like me and my father are not? My father served in Vietnam and the first Gulf War. But because he was born in Ramstein, Germany, he didn't get naturalized until he was a 54-year-old man. This is well before the you're like the anchor babies, as people call it, where if you're born on U.S. soil, you're automatically a U.S. citizen. He was born in Ramstein Air Force Base in 1951, June 27th, 1951, to be specific, back when it was still occupied West Germany. So with that all being said, it baffles me that this is a discussion among the American people, that everybody is the bleeding heart of these people deserve to be here, et cetera, et cetera. Lady Liberty says, give me your poor, your huddled masses, et cetera, et cetera. Not give me your rude, aggressive people still flying their nation's flag as they cross our border. We're a nation of immigrants built on, if you would like to have better opportunity, come here, not come here and abuse our system. And I myself am not a conservative, but I'm starting to lean that way real fucking hard, because I grew up a lifelong Democrat from the state of Wisconsin. And in the past 10 years, I've watched my country change so drastically that I no longer recognize it. And I'm losing respect for my own nation and faith in humanity of my own country. And the list goes on and on. But unless you want to hear me rant on, I'm going to pass it to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. No, and you know what? Thank you for your service, and I agree with everything you said. And it's a shame that, take aside the illegals coming over here, you know, we don't treat our veterans or our military people with the respect that they deserve. And then now you add this on, you know, they're just like, nope, you got to go. You know, not only we have money on the heads of each immigrant, you know, to give them a bed, but it's more money that the government is giving us for the veterans. So when you talk about capitalism, this is capitalism at its worst. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming up here. You can stay up. I
I
didn't know if
do
you
have
want
to
to.
disagree with the capitalism point. This is crony capitalism, which is a bastardization of the Faustian agreement that we made between cultural Marxism and a fascist government.
Well, let me tell you.
America is not
Go,
capitalistic in any way, shape, or form.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but let me say what I think is going on from an analysis. Article 1 of the Constitution says every 10 years, a census shall toward the ends of determining an apportionment of the representatives in the House of Representatives in Congress. And I have participated in no less than 5 adult censuses where I had to fill everything out. This is the only one I've ever participated in. That's 2020, where I was not asked my citizenship status, nor was I asked the status of my parents in that regard. What I think they're doing is they are attempting to crowd in as many people as they can for the next census so that certain states like California, Illinois, New York will have a ramped up population that will increase the number of representatives that are in the House to protect that state's interest. The interesting and despicable part of this is that these people that will be represented will not be able to vote for the most part, unless they're voting for perhaps local elections in places like New York, where they're trying to allow non citizens the opportunity of voting. Now, what is even more despicable is it's the same kind of thing that a lot of people confuse. Article 1 of the Constitution says, for purposes of this apportionment, 3/5 of all persons held in involuntary servitude or slavery shall be counted toward that number. And just like those people who were either slaves or in involuntary servitude could not vote and did not have full rights as citizens, they were still counted. So the South was enabled to have a much larger representation in the House than it was entitled to if only the voters were considered. And that is the same kind of thing. This is the same kind of despicable move to get voters, to get extra representation based on people who cannot participate as voters. It's the same thing the South did when they excluded blacks from voting during after Reconstruction hit, but still maintaining a sufficient representative base in Congress to get their will satisfied. So that is the same thing I think you're looking at right now. They want extra representatives so California, Illinois, and New York do not lose people in the House based on their or loss of population. But they want to build it up and have these people not able to vote. That is an important thing, and people need to wrap their heads around that concept to understand what's going on.
Right. I mean, and one more thing, and I'm gonna come back to you, Strap, and then I'm gonna move on to Sports Illustration. But one more thing about capitalism, yeah, America is a capitalist society. However, there are a lot of cons to it, which, to your point, when you talk about the cronyism and fascism and stuff like that. But when you talk about private enterprise or free enterprise, this is a capitalist society. But the powers that be, a lot of times, what happened to him? He dropped off. Well, the powers that be sometimes monopolize and take advantage of it and try to monopolize certain industries, if not all industries. I don't know what happened to Strap. So if you could hop back on, please do. Maybe he lost connection. Sports Illustration. That was the first thing I put in this title, right? I'm gonna come to you, Adam. Is it about Sports Illustration or is it about what we just talked about, Adam?
It was about what we just talked about in the HBCU. Yeah, for the HBCU, yeah, and Biden, it's very ironic to see a man that pushed for segregation, pushed all these, co-authored or authored the crime bills, all these things that he's done throughout his history, to get up on a stage and say that white supremacy is the most dangerous thing in the country right now. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
very
hypocrite.
ironic to hear that guy. And as far as
Oh,
what go ahead,
no, I was
Dana.
going to say that the guy on his graduation hat, he put Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't care about black people. Love it. I wonder if anybody ever found out who that graduate student was or is.
Bless his heart.
Right. The only one with an independent mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adam. I'm gonna go to
And
Strap, and then I'm gonna
and
go
as
to
far
Sports
as
Illustration.
yeah, what the gentleman Strap said, yeah, definitely, this is not that. This is the problem: is these kids are thinking that this is capitalism, and it's crony capitalism. It's cronyism. It's not. It's it's not true free market capitalism. So these people have the youngins have a misconstrued idea of what capitalism truly is,
You know
and
what I'm gonna do? Next Tuesday, Judge. I want that to be one of the main topics: capitalism, then, now, or America. To actually break down that, because this is a capitalist society. But I don't disagree with Strap or you, Adam. Because but that's how it's been, and I think this is not something new, where you have people or entities monopolizing industries, right? So, but overall, America, yeah, I mean, but not just America. There are other countries that are capitalistic as well. So I think I want to elaborate more on that next week. I think that's a good topic.
definitely. And then
Yeah.
I posted at the top a video. This guy Michael Yon, he's a military vet, and I think Strapped was going to refer to him. He's been down at the Darien Gap. He's been hanging out there watching Chinese nationals, military aged men come over there. These people are spending $80,000, somewhere around there, depending on how much they spend. It depends the route that they end up taking to our border, or through the islands or whatever. So you could, watch. These NGOs are down there in the Darien Gap, and they're sending charter buses, like brand spanking new looking charter buses, to bring these people up to our border from the Darien Gap. And yeah, you see these are non-government organizations, and who knows exactly who they're funded by, but yeah, they're facilitating this invasion, and they're complicit as well.
If you're saying that there's some Chinese companies or
No, there's about 35 to 75,000 military-age Chinese national men that have crossed the border in the past 72 hours.
now, is there a link to the flood of fentanyl, because that is coming from China, but is they're funneling it through South America, Mexico into the United States? Is that, do you think
Well,
that's
that's
part
not
of?
necessarily entirely the case. So fentanyl
Okay.
doesn't entirely come from China. China does mass produce fentanyl, but now the Sinaloan and what remains of the Gulf cartel have actually got the chemical structure to synthesize fentanyl right there in both Chihuahua, Guadalajara, and Sinaloa. The Mexican government has busted, I think, 3 or 4 fentanyl creation labs in the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, just to bring some
Yeah.
levity to the situation, I
You
didn't
know,
realize at 81 years old, Martha Stewart is still such a baddie.
all right, so
I'm right there with
wait.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, hold on for a second, and thank you for and you know what? Capitalism fentanyl. I want to have that discussion next week, Tuesday. All right, Sports Illustration. And Command, I tried to bring you up, and it didn't connect. All right, Sports
Well,
Illustrated.
I kind of got I lost my connection before when the Mr. Joe Brown was talking. The Honorable Judge Joe Brown
Oh,
was
okay.
speaking. Um, but I think he was referring to Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, and I know he had brought up the Three-Fifths Compromise and everything. So, with what he was speaking about, there are states such as California, New York, and I do believe Oregon is pushing for it currently, to where non-U.S. citizens can vote for local elections like mayor, constables, comptrollers, things like that, aldermen. If they're doing that at a local level, there's an old saying that I'm sure the honorable judge is familiar with: as California goes, so goes the nation. If they're doing that there and it's being quote unquote successfully implemented, they're going to try and push for that at a federal level. And I do believe it was CNN, MSNBC, and ABC all said there's only like 34,000 illegal immigrants that have crossed into the country this year. I live in Texas, and the Border Patrol in Texas so far in 2023 has reported anywhere between 1.2 and 1.8 million people. And that is taken into account that that's only about 20% of the actual number, because we see and or apprehend roughly 20% of the people that cross the border. So multiply that with another 80% to that number, and you've somewhere got the real statistic. It is staggering how many people just flood through our southern border. You notice people don't illegally immigrate from Canada because, one, the northern states, it's one solid wood line, essentially, wood line and lake, and it's very easily patrollable. There's no vast areas of inhospitable environment if you're relatively aware of how to survive in the cold.
Okay.
But you don't see it from the northern border. You only see it from the southern border. And we're seeing not South Americans. We're seeing ethnic Chinese, Laos, Cambodian, Vietnamese, Nigerian, Sudanese, Somali, just coming over in huge numbers, which means that instead of going to the port of entry for anything east of the continental United States, your port of entries are New York, Charlotte, and a couple other places. Instead of going through there where they're legally supposed to, they're going out of their way to come through the Darien Gap and come in with these migrant caravans. Because when they come in such a massive number, without actually stationing the military on our border, there's no possible way to combat it at all. Because if you build a wall, they'll dig a tunnel.
Right.
You collapse the tunnel, they cut through the wall. There's no way to get away from this with our southern border. It's too long, it's too expansive, there's too much unoccupied areas, and not enough men to actually control that area. Now, the U.S. government has a couple legitimate roles, and that's the issuing of currency, international trade, cross-state trade, and protection of our borders. Outside of that, the U.S. federal government has no legal jurisdiction to do anything that it does, according to the U.S. Constitution. They don't have the right to have the FDA and the IRS and all that shit. It's all unconstitutional, and people have won in court cases.
Don't judge him, Joe Brown.